This is Wraith from Wraith Rain. I'm an author of serialized gay romance fiction. Every week on this podcast, I'll be reading a chapter from one of my gay fantasy shifter serials called Dragon's Reign. I'll explain at the break how you can find out more about this story and others I write. So let's get to it. Chapter 77. Perspectives. Caden stood on the plaza outside of the throne room. He was dressed in one of Velarius's large cable-knit sweaters, whose sleeves hung a few inches below his fingertips, and the hem brushed the tops of his knees, along with his favorite jeans and boots. He'd never seen Velarius in a sweater, let alone this one. But the Dragon King had fished it out of somewhere and helped Caden put it on, smoothing his hands down Caden's shoulders and arms. "It's a little big," Caden had laughed. "It is perfect." Velarius had countered, his eyes hooding as if it pleased him to see Caden in his clothes. "It smells like you, so I love it," Caden had murmured. They'd kissed, and to Caden, it felt like expecting to fall, but flying instead. His heart had seemed to expand several times larger as he'd pressed his face against Velarius's chest afterwards, and the Dragon King stroked up and down his back. "I wish we could just stay here and ignore everybody and everything," Caden said, relishing the coziness of Velarius's tower. "I know. I feel the same," Velarius murmured. His breath puffed against Caden's hair. It was warm. Velarius was always so warm. Caden snuggled closer. "But we can't, right?" "Are you asking or confirming?" Velarius chuckled. "I know we can't." Caden sighed. "Your parents and sister will be here soon, along with Wally and Rose. I've invited them for dinner," Velarius told him. "To talk about everything?" Caden tensed as he went over in his mind for the seeming 1,000th time what had happened in the below. "Yes, but also to plan what to do about your identity. We need to tell them what you want to do," Velarius reminded him. "Hide here with you? That's my plan," Caden stated. Velarius's shoulders lifted as he chuckled almost silently. "I wish you would hide behind me, but whenever I wonder where the trouble is, all I need to do is find you." Caden snorted. "Yeah, well, I feel like I've had enough excitement today." They pulled back from one another, though Caden's hands lingered on Velarius's waist. Velarius was also dressed, but no oversized sweaters for him. It was all silk and leather and black knee-high boots. He looked delectable. He looked like what he was, the Black Dragon King. "Is there anything I can do?" Caden asked. Velarius lifted an eyebrow. "About what?" "Everything." Velarius smiled. "No, not right now. You are a symbol to the faith, so perhaps later I will ask you to speak to Jennifer and Carrie again, to make sure they know nothing more, but I tend to think that they weren't given more information than they needed to know. They're true believers, so they wouldn't have asked any questions either." Velarius frowned, his plush lips flattening. "What will the other dragons say about this?" Caden asked. "We will find out tonight." Velarius leaned in and kissed Caden again. Caden could still feel that kiss as he watched the sunset. He wrapped his arms around himself and leaned on the plaza's balcony, looking over Reach. It wasn't cold exactly, but he still felt cozy, and Velarius's scent was still all around him, which made him feel safe and loved. He thought briefly on all the other relationships he'd had in the past. Nothing came close to this one. Even as the world was crazy, he felt so sure and steady with Velarius. He turned his head as he heard Velarius's voice as he spoke to Shioni in the throne room, filling her in on all that had occurred. He was just telling her that he would address the dragons at dinner after Queen's Jahara's arrival. "King Anwar will not appreciate that," Shioni warned. "Perhaps we should wait for his arrival tomorrow." "He should fly faster if he does not wish to be left out." The scowl was deeply evident in Velarius's voice. Shioni sighed. "You do not mean that." Perhaps he should have taken a plane, and then he would have been here by now. You are just worried he's going to judge your decor again. Caden could hear Shione's indulgent smile. He said it looked like ruin chic last time. I think he only meant the ruin part. The scowling tone was more intense. Caden couldn't help grinning, but the grin quickly died. He tightened his hold on himself. What are we going to do, Ellarian? How can you face an enemy that could be anyone? His spirit cooed its own concern. Maybe we should wait for King Anwar. Maybe he'll have some ideas that aren't about High Reach. The white dragon appeared to be smiling. It loved High Reach because the entire castle felt and smelled like Raziel. Even with the other dragons here, Velarius and Raziel reigned supreme in Iolair's eyes. Yeah, I agree. Caden heard the thump of footsteps and the stone steps that led down from the plaza to the lower level of the castle. Ellarian's head appeared, and then the rest of the well-dressed Green Dragon King followed after. Caden grimaced. This was the last thing he needed. He thought about making a quick retreat into the throne room, but then held his ground. He had waited to see the sunset. He wasn't going to let Ellarian chase him away. The Green Dragon obviously knew he was there, but he sauntered over to Caden, hands in the pockets of his well-tailored suit and eyes on the horizon as if he didn't. He stopped a foot away and leaned on the railing without saying anything. Caden clenched his jaw harder. What? Caden finally snapped. Ellarian turned his handsome head to look at Caden, eyebrows rising, as if surprised by Caden's snappishness. Do you have some reason to be angry with me? Caden's mouth opened and shut. Are you serious? Ellarian leaned his hip against the railing. Yes, of course. Why would I not be? You came here flying and all rude and attacked Velarius, and that was to get Velarius's goat, not yours. Ellarian said with a wave. I came here to claim me as your mate. Caden's lifted eyebrows and words had Ellarian nodding and looking slightly sheepish. Yes, well, it may have been premature. Premature! Caden hadn't thought his eyebrows could go higher. You didn't even wait to meet me before you proclaimed I was yours, as if that was ever going to happen. Not. Caden shook his head. You didn't even know if you liked me. I do like you. You're fiery. Ellarian laughed, then seeing the growing scowl on Caden's face, he held up his hands as if in surrender. I mean, you speak your mind. I'm surprised you like that, considering what you do to your people, Caden retorted. In a surprisingly mild tone, Ellarian asked, What do you know of how I treat my people? Caden realized somewhere inside of him that he should quit this topic or go inside or do something, anything, than confront the titanic Green Dragon. He was probably creating an international incident or something. He was undoubtedly causing trouble for Velarius, which he most certainly did not want to do. But his mouth seemed to be operating separately from his body and his brain. After the day he'd had, maybe that wasn't totally surprising. You put people in camps, prison camps. There's no freedom in your territory. I'm sure you do terrible things. But since there's no press in your territory, we only hear rumors. But they are enough, Caden yelled, and his eyes darted over Ellarian's shoulder to the throne room. But Velarius and Shione were still deep in conversation. Semi and Nagoye had joined them. Yes, I do. After what has happened today, can you blame me? Ellarian's eyes were narrowed, but his tone was more conversational than angry. Caden wondered how much Ellarian knew about today's attack. Probably more than he should. Caden's voice dropped off, then he said, Not everyone is a terrorist. Not everyone is an enemy. There are innocent people that you are locking up. Ellarian bobbed his head. Yes, you are likely right that there are some currently innocent people in the camps. Currently? Caden's eyebrows were practically joining his hairline now. Ellarian's eyes and voice became serious. You are young and naive. If you do not know this about yourself, the world will teach it to you. Ellarian interrupted Caden's outrage. Caden, there is the possibility of violence in every person. Push them hard enough, and you will find it. And if they are the type of person pushed in the wrong direction by what you want, Then they will cause you and yours trouble. Kaden couldn't deny that. Putting people in camps isn't the answer. Then what is? Caden's mouth opened and shut. Is that why you're doing it? Not just to shut down dissent? Ellarian leaned his back against the railing and crossed his arms over his chest. In Russia, things are felt deeply. The people there have suffered. Every generation has had something to bear. Famine, war, pogroms, plague. It has made the people there strong and hard. But when you feel like there is nothing to lose, you will throw yourself into the fire. Kaden frowned. What do you mean? I've sensed unrest since the beginning. I knew that eventually humanity would catch on, that they were going to be the last and least, Ellarian grunted. And when they did, anyone who offered them a dream of changing that would succeed in riling them up. And then I have May on my backside. What about May? She plans to attack me. She is preparing for war. She wants more land, and I have it, he said with a shake of his head. I cannot let my territory be weakened by dissent on the inside when I have her just waiting on the outside with her mechanical men. A sudden thought occurred to Kaden, and once more his mouth opened. Were you behind May's robots going crazy? A sly smile crossed Ellarian's face. In my territory, we have the best hackers. So you did it! I did not say that, did I? Ellarian winked at him. Velarius needs to know that hacking May's robots isn't part of the Faith's abilities, Kaden protested. Tell him your suspicions then. But simply because someone other than the Faith may have had a hand in it this time, does not mean that they could not be behind it next. Ellarian responded with a shrug. But the devastation of May's little army has bought me time as she frantically seeks a solution to it. Can't go to war if you can't trust your army. I hope you are enjoying Dragon's Reign so far. During these difficult times, we know that many of you are more focused on how you're going to pay rent or purchase food to have any money for entertainment. But ironically, now is when we need entertainment the most. I don't know about you, but I desperately need to break away from my constant reading of the news and watching governors speak about the latest numbers. So while we are all on quarantine, I am keeping the newest serial on my site called Empire of Stars open for everyone to read along. There will be between 2 and 4 chapters released a month of this epic new space fantasy. And of course, the gay romance is right front and center. You get to experience a little bit what it's like to be a Wraith Reign member and read every chapter as it comes out. I hope you will check out Empire of Stars and read along with everyone. The link in the description down below. You and May can't go to war at all, Kaden cried. And he knew it sounded ridiculous. He was just walking right into Ellarian's judgment of him being naive. Ellarian, though, was more surprised that he said it. You think we choose this? Yes, of course. You guys want to fight? Fine. But not now. We need to face the Faith and fix that problem before anything else, Kaden told him. But even as the words came out, he knew that they were foolish again. Kaden, so innocent. Ellarian chuckled, but not cruelly. This thing with the Faith, the other thing with humans first, and even the other thing with May. None of them will ever be fixed. You make war and strife sound inevitable. Caden's shoulders slumped. This 30 years of peace has been the anomaly, Kaden, not the war coming. That is what is normal. Ellarian said and patted his shoulder almost kindly. You should align yourself with the strongest dragon so that your life at least can be safe and secure. Kaden straightened and said stoutly, Velarius is the strongest. He expected Ellarian to scoff at this, but the green dragon said, He could be, but he cares too much. Today, that speech was beautiful. I felt it in my own bones. He should have taken advantage of it and led the people to tear down the temples of the Faith, make some of the faithful hate shifters instead of wanting to blow up people to make more. You mean incite a mob? Velarius would never do that. Kaden shook his head violently. With a sad smile, Ellarian nodded. I know. And that is why he is not the strongest. Ellarian pushed off of the railing and headed towards the throne room. He threw over his shoulder. Think on it, Kaden. We may not share a bed, but I could give you the peace you want. You would love my territory, with its mountains, lakes, and rivers. Ellarian would have plenty of snow-kissed land to enjoy. Your family would be treated as royalty. And, in the end, what is better than that? Kaden frowned after Ellarian's retreating back. He wanted to answer justice, prosperity, and peace for all. But that sounded naive even in his own ears. But just because it might not be possible, does it mean we should just give up? Shouldn't we just keep trying to make a more perfect world? He does not understand. You would never choose safety over Velarius. Tez said from the darkness of the steps where Ellarian had emerged from. You both are so romantic. Caden's frown became a smile. Tez, you were eavesdropping. The gold dragon grinned and hopped up the stairs 2 at a time to join Kaden. Maybe a little. It was such a fascinating conversation, and I cannot believe I am saying fascinating in the same sentence as Ellarian. Tez's mouth flattened after saying the green dragon's name as if it tasted bad. That caused Kaden to smile more. He was a little different this time around, Kaden admitted. Not as, stupid as he normally is? Yes, I agree, Tez answered with a nod. He so often plays the strong man, who seems only to see the surface layer of things, that one forgets there is some depths to him. Kaden shifted his position so that his right hip was resting against the cool stone. Do you think he's right? Tez gave a cough laugh. No. Well, not exactly. He flashed very white teeth at Kaden. I think dissent from one's people is a good thing. Too often, those in power forget what it is like to be at the bottom. They take for granted what they experience. They take for granted that what they experience is what everyone experiences. They forget the least of us. So the people must rise up. Tez's arms lifted as if conducting an orchestra of the discontented. Kaden could almost see villagers grabbing their torches and pitchforks. Even violently? Kaden thought of what would happen if even one of the planned bombs had gone off as it should have. Yes, even violently. Tez nodded, and the feathers in his hair bobbed along with him. Kaden must have looked horrified as he added, Sometimes the only way people will listen is if you have a gun to their heads, Kaden. What about the innocent victims? The people in the below have nothing, and now they have to be afraid of being blown up too? Kaden gripped the railing. Tez's expression was thoughtful. Like Ellarian, he did not react in anger to Caden's arguments. Kaden realized that this had to be because of age. The dragons had lived so long and seen so much. They thought about things rather than reacted. At least they were this way with him, patient and just trying to teach. But he didn't know if he wanted to learn their lessons. One way the faith could have looked at this is as that those in the below would be best served by the bombs, Tez said finally. Kaden goggled at him. You cannot be serious. Tez put a hand on Caden's right forearm. You don't want to see, Kaden. The best and the most immediate way out of poverty and the underclass is to become a shifter. The faith wanted to give the people in the below that chance. And those who weren't so lucky would get death? Caden's voice was bitter. Tez nodded sadly. That is the price. I'm surprised you would be okay with this, Tez, Kaden cried. I would like a solution that benefits all, but there is always a cost, and sometimes the poorest of us pay it, Tez explained. So it is not that I am okay with it, as you say. I just acknowledge the truth of it. Are you going to say I'm naive too? Like Ellarian for wanting a different solution, a different paradigm? Kaden asked. Tez smiled broadly at him, his sunny face becoming even more appealing. Not in the least. I think that Ellarian and you are here to bring hope. So keep believing in that other solution. Keep seeking it. Maybe you will find it while others have not. With a final squeeze of his forearm, Tez too walked off towards the throne room. But Kaden was not left alone for long. Why, you look very cozy. Esme's bright voice called to him as she came up in a shimmering blue dress that looked like ice captured in fabric. You look beautiful, Esme, Kaden told her earnestly. Oh, flattery will get you everywhere. Esme twittered and kissed both of his cheeks as she held his hands in hers. When she pulled back, she studied his face critically. How are you doing? Not really good, Kaden admitted, then sighed. But I should be glad. Everyone but the one bomber is okay. My mom is fine. Rose and Marban are good. Velarius is wonderful as always, and I'm... My dear boy, no one expects you to be fine. I'm not, Esme admitted. You lost your friend, he said, thinking of Sarai. Esme's expression grew pensive. Was she my friend? I hardly feel like I know her at all. She shook herself. You've come into quite the mess, haven't you? Well, I suppose it is to be expected. Another dragon spirit wouldn't have just appeared when things were calm. How did... Kaden stopped himself. Asking for her backstory might be rude or presumptuous. But she smiled as she finished his sentence. How did I join with my spirit? Oh, now that is a tale. I will tell you the abbreviated version. She looked out at the slowly darkening horizon and said nothing for a long time despite her smile and light laugh earlier. It likely wasn't a happy story. Velarius had indicated that none of the other dragon shifters were made because of good things. I had been in service to a king of a country that I will not name, she said finally. I had outlived most everyone. My faculties were still remarkably good. I was considered both ancient and wise for the time period. People did not live so long back then. Kaden resisted the urge to ask her how long ago this was. But my time as counselor to kings was coming to an end. But my enemies, and I had so many of those, determined that I should not go into that good night peacefully, she remarked dryly. They wanted to kill you. Kaden sounded aghast. Oh, yes. Her smile was still amused, and rightly so. I had earned their enmity, and I didn't blame them for their actions except... She bit her lower lip for a moment. I wonder if those in the faith who are behind Sarai's part knew this about me. Knew what? As I said, I did not blame them for wishing me dead or seeking to kill me, but they involved an innocent to do it. Her face looked pale and drawn for a moment. She came for tea, as she always did, and brought me some of her mother's special medicine that helped with aches and pains. But this time, it was poisoned. She didn't know? Kaden guessed, having heard the word innocent. No, she didn't. She saw me start to froth at the mouth when I took it. She was screaming and calling for help. I slumped to the floor. Everything was terribly distant except for her face, Esme mused. She looked like she'd been stabbed in the heart. And then Esme went silent, her hands flexed and released in front of her. She took the medicine and drank it down herself, Esme said simply. Oh my God, Esme. It was when she was dying that Scylla came to me, Esme continued. You see, she was my granddaughter, and her own mother, my daughter, had sent her with the poison. Kaden opened his mouth and nothing came out. Scylla asked if I wanted revenge, and as my dear granddaughter lost her life, I said yes. Give me life so that I might take revenge, she answered. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have... She tightened her hands around his. You should ask. It's important. History doesn't repeat so much as rhymes. And the truth is that remembering the innocent in all of this, the ones that will be twisted to another's purpose, will give us the strength to do what is hard when the time comes. Caden could only imagine how hard it had been for Esme to take revenge against her own daughter. He couldn't imagine what Esme had been through to do it. Yet Esme had said her enemies had been right to hate her and seek her death. What had happened between her daughter and her to earn that? Caden caught movement at the edge of his vision. His head turned as he saw that in the distance was a fog bank. It was huge and seemed to shimmer with its own light. Ah, she's here, Esme said with satisfaction. Queen Jahara has arrived. I hope you're enjoying Dragon's Reign so far. Dragon's Reign is free for you to enjoy, but not free for us to make. There is a whole team working with me for audio editing, artwork, graphic design, and custom music. Most YouTube channels and podcasts have sponsors and take ads, but because of the kind of content we make, we can't run ads or get sponsors. Instead, we have other ways you can support me and the team behind this gay romance audiobook. One easy way is to buy or borrow my books from Amazon. They are all gay romance set in alternative worlds with vampires or shifters and other magical beings. You may not know that even if you borrow books with your Kindle Unlimited subscription at Amazon, they are free for you, but they still earn us money. The books are published under the name Ex Aritare, which actually means wraith in Romanian. And if you love audiobooks, you can get professionally narrated versions of every one of my books on audible.com. The link to my author page is in the description below, as well as to the first book of the series I think you'll really like. Thank you so much for your support. People like you enable me and the team to keep writing these stories of gay romance, magic, monsters, and true love, and producing this very fun podcast for everyone. Thank you.